Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something pretty huge, the return of a landmark horror franchise with 28 years later.
Yeah, it's really got people talking. It's been, what, almost 30 years in that world since the rage virus hit London?
Exactly. And the original duo, Danny Boyle directing and Alex Garland writing, they're back together for this one.
Which is a big deal in itself.
Absolutely. And critics seem to love it. We're seeing scores like 95, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic around 78. Lots of buzz.
The descriptions are interesting, too. Haunting, visceral, defies expectations. Some are calling it odd, but very good.
Right. So that's kind of our mission today, isn't it? To unpack what's going on here.
Definitely. We want to figure out what makes this film tick, how it maybe pushes the zombie genre forward or maybe sideways.
And what it's trying to say about us now, after all this time, after, well, decades of real-world crises, too.
Survival, right, but maybe not just from monsters.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. The film takes place almost 3 decades on. The rage virus is basically contained to mainland UK now.
Yeah, ruthlessly contained. The survivors we focus on are out on Holy Island living this almost feudal life, they call it.
Feudal life, so like cut off, self-sufficient.
Pretty much. Very
Yeah.
structured, very isolated. They're only connected by this causeway, heavily guarded, only usable at low tide.
And this film kind of ignores the other sequel, 28 Weeks Later, and focuses on a new generation, right? People born after the outbreak.
Exactly. It feels very much like a direct follow-up, or maybe, like you said, a bookend to the original 28 Days Later.
And it seems like it's really leaning into today's anxieties. I read things about Brexit, the pandemic influencing.
Yes, absolutely. It's tackling those themes head on. Nationalism, isolation, even this idea of weaponized culture.
Weaponized culture, how so?
Like how fear and information, or maybe misinformation, get used to divide people, almost like the virus itself, but social. The focus shifts to breaking that cycle of violence.
Interesting. And there's this line about the future looking back to our primeval past.
Yeah, it suggests how quickly society can regress under pressure,
Yeah.
Back to basics, back to older fears and structures. It's quite perceptive.
So how does this tie into the characters? Who are we following?
The main focus is this 14-year-old kid, Spike. Alfie Williams plays him. He represents that post-virus generation entirely.
Okay. And he's on some kind of journey.
Yeah, a coming-of-age story, really.
Yeah.
His dad, Jamie, that's Aaron Taylor Johnson, teaches him how to survive, how to hunt on the mainland.
And Jodie Comer is in it too.
Right, she plays Isla, Spike's mother. She's mostly housebound, but apparently offers these really crucial lessons that aren't just about, fighting monsters.
And Ralph Fiennes shows up later.
He does. Dr. Ian Kelson.
Yeah.
Adds a very different kind of weight to the later part of the film. Kind of narrows the focus effectively.
What about the infected? Have they changed? It's been 28 years.
Oh, yeah. They've evolved. They're not just the runners anymore. Some crawl, apparently, which is creepy. And then there are these alphas, smarter ones, leading packs. It shows the virus itself has adapted, grown.
Wow, okay. And visually, it's supposed to be quite striking. You mentioned Boyle used phones.
Mostly iPhones, yeah. The iPhone 15 Max Pro, specifically, it allowed for this incredibly dynamic, sort of kinetic coverage in action scenes.
Kinetic, right, like really raw and immediate.
Exactly. And they apparently got this sort of poor man's bullet time effect on some shots. It's been called a bloody pop art installation.
Huh, okay. So critics are raving, but you mentioned some audience reactions are more mixed, polarizing.
Seems that way. Some reviews, maybe more from audience perspectives, call it choppy, muddled, even strange.
Not as scary or intense as the others, maybe. More of a drama.
That seems to be the sentiment for some. Like it's a dark drama within the horror setting, but maybe doesn't deliver the same kind of relentless terror for everyone.
There was talk Sony held the review embargo back, maybe anticipating that disconnect.
That was the speculation, yeah. That it might not meet everyone's expectations of what a 28 Days Weeks Later sequel should feel like. Some feel it sort of lumbers slowly behind the original and the culture.
Interesting. So connecting this back, Boyle seems to see horror as a way to talk about real-world stuff, right? Political dangers.
Definitely. He thinks a culture that gets too stagnant, too regressive, can actually, lead us to horror.
And he drew that parallel between the original virus, trigger the chimps watching violence, and social media today.
He did. He talked about the rage-inducing content algorithms push at us. That constant feed of anger and division, like a modern version of the rage virus almost.
Oh, that's a powerful idea.
But he also still believes in cinema, in movies, as a way to find an authentic connection, something maybe missing from those digital spaces.
Okay, so wrapping this up. What's the takeaway? 28 years later isn't just trying to scare us with monsters.
Not just, no. It sounds like it's really a commentary wrapped up in this sort of soulful coming-of-age story, but still, grotesque and moving art.
And it's the start of a new trilogy. The Bone Temple is already filmed.
That's right. Filmed back-to-back, apparently. So this story, these themes, they're going to continue to unfold.
Which leaves us and you with a pretty potent thought, I think.
Yeah. In a world facing constant, massive change, where the line between real and maybe imagined terrors gets blurry.
What kind of people do we become after we survive? And maybe more importantly, how do we find real connection through all the noise?
Something to think about.